Welcome to my 7th video in the second chapter of my game design project for an action RPG. And this chapter is kind of an enrichment chapter. We're going to program the player to be able to charge up their right-click attack in 3 different power levels. So this will then be able to be charged up to have fireballs that have different effects to give the player more variety as we play. And then I think this is going to be into a second video, but actually working on the effects of each fireball. And then the final video would be to put a bar above the player's head to indicate the current charge level. So the player has some kind of feedback as to what power level of fireball they're about to shoot. So we've already got we've got the objects set up. So really we're just going to need to go straight into the player script. And so let's kind of set some of this up. We need to kind of overhaul a lot of the ranged attack part. So what that means is we're going to change some of these things into arrays. So we're going to make an array of game objects called range projectile. Damage is now going to be an integer array. And it's fine, I can just leave it called range damage. And then I'm going to set it equal to 5, 15, 45. And it is worth knowing, again, this is still stored on the projectile, so it does kind of beg the question why we even bother with it, and I'm actually taking it out. Ranged mana cost is going to be an array now. So it's going to be 15 mana for the first, 30 mana for a level 2, and 60 mana for the final charge level. The cooldown, we could turn that into an array if we wanted to. I'm tentatively not, but it really wouldn't take much effort just to swap this to being an array and then giving it different amounts of cooldown per level. Then we need a public float array called ranged, we can call it charge range time. And this is how much time you need to reach each level of the fireball. So the first one is it takes half a second, then it takes another half second to get to a level 2 charge, and it'll take 3/4 of a second to get to the final. So level 1 is basically 0.5 seconds. A level 2 fireball would take 1 second to charge, and then a level 3 fireball takes 1.75 seconds to charge. So that's how you would interpret those values. Now we also need to keep track of what level my ranged attack is. So we're going to have we need some private variables now. So we need private int ranged charge level, and we need a private boolean is charging. So am I charging up my attack? And I think that should be all we really need. Oh, we need to keep count of how much time we spent charging. So private float ranged charge time. Okay, so we've got all that in there. We've added these. You can tell from this yellow here if you're updating your code to tell what I've changed. So that's actually what we've changed for to kind of accommodate adding a ranged attack. All right, next up, let's go visit my code for attacks. And you can see all of this started to break because of my renaming of things. And that's okay, because we're gonna have to fix it anyway. So I kind of feel like I need to start doing the cleanups that I've been doing here. So let's make a method called update melee attack, and we're going to move this to its own method called update melee attack. Probably could have made these private methods. Public void update melee attack. You know, we'll make these private. because we don't need other things outside of it to really see them. So I'm just going to change all those to private. And then also, while I'm here, I'm going to move my ranged attack stuff there. So I'm going to cut that out, and I'm going to say update ranged attack. And so we're going to just make another method for it. Private void update ranged attack. And I'm going to paste the code in there. And I accidentally didn't include my comment here, so I just need to check for melee attack. So update these comments a little bit so that there's some more detail to it. So I'm going to save that. I'm going to minimize my update melee attack method, and then I'm going to go focus on my update ranged attack method. And so, I mean, ultimately the whole goal of this was to make update a lot more manageable, and it really is now. Once this goes, I'm going to delete this at the start of 3.1. Once I get rid of a lot of that, it makes it easier to navigate. So let's begin the efforts of making a charged attack. I also like it because it kind of compartmentalizes all of my code, which is nice. So this does need some serious overhauling, and I'm not going to delete it because I still want to keep a lot of this. But let's start here. And actually we need to, inside of my start method, let's just throw in ranged charge level. It should start at 0, and ranged charge time should also start at 0. All right. So the first thing this is actually going to use all the different mouse buttons, which is pretty cool. What it's going to start with is we're going to see if we push the mouse down. So let's go with if input.get button down fire 2, and we are not attacking, and attack cooldown ticker is less than or equal to 0. And we'll do the mana cost thing. Now we could actually, we'll put that as an if statement inside of here. So this here is the player button is first pressed. So the player has just pushed the right mouse button in. They're not attacking, and their cooldown allows them to. So let's start it off with an if statement about the mana. If mana.current value is less than the ranged mana cost for a first level fireball, then we can charge it. And then the else case would be, when we get around to it, play sound effects for not enough mana. And so that way, like, if you're out of mana and you're trying to start up a charge, it's just going to say, like, not enough mana. But we're going to get to that when we get to the sound effects. So if you have enough mana to start a basic fireball, we will start with is charging is true. So we're going to start tracking that we're charging a attack. We're going to clear out our ranged charge time and my ranged charge level. Now, the way that I'm going to set this up is you have to charge enough to reach a level 1 fireball for an attack to happen. So it's kind of like, in many games, it can be thought of as a bow attack. A character can't immediately shoot an arrow from a bow. They have to spend a short amount of time pulling back the string and charging up an attack. And that's what this is going to basically be. It's going to take 0.5 seconds before the player has enough of a charge to let out a fireball. So you can't immediately snap out a level 1 fireball. You've got to charge a little bit before you can, to kind of balance this whole ranged attack thing. Let's also begin the animation. The animator, we're going to call a trigger that we haven't added yet, but I'm going to make a trigger called charging. And so that's going to actually put the player into an animation where it looks like they're beginning to charge up a fireball attack. So this starts it. Then we need to check else if. So we're going to just see if the button is being held down now. And we are charging, so it is charging. And we're not stunned. Oh, I don't have that yet. So we're not going to worry about stunned. So this is for the code for button is being held down inside of here. So inside of this code, we're checking to see if the button is being held down. And so if you're holding down the button, that's where we need to start detecting if we should start increasing the power of the fireball. And this part of the code is very array heavy. It's probably the nastiest part of it. So let's begin. And you're only going to have gotten into this state if the is charging variable is true, which only gets set if you were able to even enter this charging state to begin with. So I don't need to worry about checking to see if I'm not attacking or what the state of my cooldown ticker is. So this can only be happening if is charging is true. So if ranged charge level is less than the ranged, let's go with the ranged, which one's the array? This one. Ranged time. You know what? Let's rename this from ranged time. Let's call it ranged time goal to indicate that this is what you need to reach to get to the next level. So if my charge level is less than the range time goal, dot length. So what we're doing is actually kind of allowing this to be dynamic. If you were to add a 4th rank, the code will change for that because it's going to base this off of the array. So if I'm level 0, the length of the array is 3. So this will let me charge up 3 times because it's going to start at 0, and even when I'm level 1, then I can continue charging. And then once I'm level 2, which, yeah, level 2, it would still work because I'm a level 2 fireball, but once I go up to level 3, it's going to stop, and it's no longer going to let me charge. So, and then if mana.current value is greater than or equal to ranged mana cost of the current ranged charge level. So, so what this is going to let me do is, I'm assuming that from a development standpoint, all my arrays are going to be the same size. So I have to verify that I have enough mana and that I'm not at a max rank fireball yet. But here's kind of where that is a little bit weird. When I'm level 0, it's going to be checking against the level 0 requirement, which is the first index of the array. so that it's guaranteeing that I have enough mana. But so like when I'm level 2, I'm trying to charge up to reach a level 3 fireball. But if you look, the level 3 fireball's mana cost is index 2 in the array. And so that all kind of works out. It is a little bit weird with how the arrays are structured. That's why I did say this was a bit of nasty array stuff. Ranged charge time plus equals time.delta time. So we're going to add the time to the charge. And then we're going to check to see if you've reached the next charge level. So if ranged charge time is greater than or equal to range time goal for the current charge level. So if I've reached my goal there, then my ranged charge level will increase. And then I will reset my range charge time. So it'll increase the level of the fireball, and it'll bump me back down to 0 for that current charge. And that's going to get me powering up the fireball over time. Now we've got to release the fireball, and that's this last part here. And I'm going to keep it as a separate if, because it is something that could kind of happen possibly in the same frame. We could have charged a little bit, and then the moment we release it, we want to grab that last bit of charge. So that's not going to be part of this if-else chain. And this is if the button is just released. Okay, so if the button is just released, and let's see, we are not already attacking. Yes, because we're going to need to be concerned about that. Since I don't want to be able to right-click and not have been allowed to start charging, but have been in the middle of some other attack. And my attack is ready. And I have been charging. So if I'm not currently attacking and I am charging and my attack cooldown is fine. Honestly, this shouldn't even happen if the other conditions are true, but you know. So then we'll set the animation to play cast. We'll say is attacking is true, which will cause me to stop moving. We'll do is charging is false because I'm done charging my fireball. I've just shot it. We calculate the angle. And now as far as spawning the fireball, we're going to spawn this at ranged charge level -1 rather than range charge level. Seems odd, but remember that if I'm at a level 1 charge, I want to shoot a fireball that's in index 0 of my array. So this is index 0, index 1, index 2. So a level 3 fireball occupies index 2 of the array. So that's why we're doing -1 on this. Transform. Oh, we probably need to have a difference here for inside of this. We only want to spawn the fireball if the ranged charge level is greater than 0. So if I've released the mouse and I have made it to a charge level of 1 or higher, then we spawn a fireball. let's put the timer on here. So attack cooldown ticker is set equal to ranged attack cooldown. Gotta find it first. And we've got the mana that needs to be updated, but we're gonna do it like we did for the ranged projectile. Ranged mana cost at range charge level -1. And then we update the UI. And I think that's all we really need to worry about. And then also perhaps we can clear out ranged charge time. So we clear the state of our attack. All right, so I know that it's kind of a bit lengthy of a thing here. And so this should be all the code for getting the ability to charge and then the ability to release and spawn a fireball. The only thing I still need to do is address this trigger for animating the charging part. I guess we can just take that out for now and verify that this works, and then we will worry about that. So let's hit save again, and we'll minimize that. Let it compile. Now I don't have an animation, so when I'm charging my fireball, it's just going to be the normal walking. And so ooh, we got an exception. Index was outside the bounds of the array. I think I need to actually set up the array on the player. So if I go look at my player script, because these are public arrays, weirdly enough, it didn't make my ranged mana cost array, which is kind of special. Well, whatever, we want it to be a size 3, so I type in 3 and push enter. My mana costs were 15, 30, and 60. And I might as well attach my fireballs here, otherwise we're just going to get a null exception when we try to shoot. Now these fireballs don't have different properties yet, they just have different graphics. So they're all going to behave exactly the same. Alright, we've updated that. I don't see anything else that looks like it's going to crash, so go back here. Now let's try it. So if I just tap it, I do my little animation, but nothing comes out, acknowledging at least the player pressed the button. If you really got into it, you can make little sparks appear over their hand, but... So if I charge for about half a second, I get that fireball. If I charge for a full second, I get that fireball. This little animation wasn't working. And if I charge for even longer, that fireball. But its impact did not seem to want to work. Oh, that one did. Alright, well, let's go investigate that fireball issue. So I'm going to open up my fireball level 2. And let's just do a quick check. Make sure it's calling everything. Let's check its animator. Ooh. Fireball 2 travel. Okay. And conditions on impact to switch into here. Ooh, that looks Oh, that should all be fine. That is definitely weird about those fireballs. So why it's not playing that animation? I'll have to maybe catch that in the second video when we actually get into the fireballs. But it does look like the player is able to get those different fireballs charged and appearing. So that looks good. The last thing I want to do is actually get the player to play an animation to indicate that they're even charging up a fireball. So to do that, let's go back to our player and go back to the animation sheet. And I'm going to add a new one. So hopefully you have already indexed out inside your player sprite these sprites, the ones next to the ranged attack that kind of look like some kind of chanting. I've named these player cast down 1 and player cast down 2, and then named them all correctly for their different sides, right, left, and up. So if you haven't renamed those, I'd recommend pausing the video and renaming these 8 sprites, because we're going to use them in this upcoming animation. Make sure they still have like all the same sizes and pivots. I didn't change anything, so I'm hitting revert. You probably should hit apply. So pause the video, make sure you've done those before continuing to this next step. So inside the animations, I want to go to create a new clip, and I'm going to call this player underscore charge underscore down, because this is the facing down direction. So player charge down is going to use the I believe I called those cast. So it's going to be using cast down 1 at the 0 mark. I'm keeping it on 60 samples. And cast down 2 at the 15. And then I need to bring it in on the 29 so that it goes out to 30. So I've got that animation. Now I've already completed the ones for up. Oops. Charge. Yeah. So these charge ones, I've already completed these to charge left, charge right, charge up. So all of those have already been completed. So if you're working through this, we just did the down, and so you'll want to pause the video and then go do those other 3 animations for the other directions, and then resume the video. So you just need to rewind to see how I did charge down. It's pretty straightforward. Once you have those done, we're going to go to the animator, and you can see that it's added these 4 just as another blob. And I'm going to take those out. I'm just going to delete them. For this, what I want is I want to be able to get to the charge state out of any state. So I am going to duplicate this cast blend tree, copy, paste, and I'm going to rename this to the charge blend tree charge. And as you can see, this direction is transitioning into cast from the cast trigger. I'm going to delete that right now. And so I need to make a any state transition to charge, and the condition that it's going to transition with is a, oh, I need to add that trigger. Let's add a trigger called charge. Probably check the code to see what I was going to name it. Charging. So this trigger is called charging. And so I'm going to go out of any state into the charge tree off of the charging trigger. There is no exit time and the transition duration is instant. And then from this tree, I'm going to make a transition into the casting tree. No exit time and a transition duration of 0 using the cast trigger. So now I go from any state to the charge to the cast, and then cast brings us back here. Now, I will add for the capacity for the player to get hit, and getting hit is going to bump them out. So, and even if you don't have a full charge, it's still going to go to the cast trigger. So this network will work for the player. We hit play. And, oh, we need to uncomment that line. So let's uncomment this line that says charging. Oh, I didn't update the blend tree, so I've got to go into the charge tree, and I've just got to change these. And if you're eagle-eyed, you might have noticed on the other one I did actually mess up, and I think I had cast right in there twice. But inside the charge tree, let's go and update that. So instead of cast down, cast up, cast right, cast left, we're going to bring in the... I gotta switch to my animations. My animations are called charge, so I want charge down, charge up, charge right, and charge left. So with those changes, now I should have an appropriate blending tree for this. Go back in. And you can see the player has this charging animation, and then they go into the little cast. So even if you don't have enough charge to shoot, you go into the charging up, and then you release. So pretty decent stopping point for us right now. We've definitely got to get the fireballs to do different things, and I'll be, we'll take a look at getting their animations and all that to play correctly. Because as you can see, they're kind of doing some weird stuff. So we're going to spend some attention on the fireballs in the next video. We're going to give them different properties. And we're going to even set up some of the code for when it hits the enemies. So when we get to the enemy video, you just have to uncomment that code, since some people may have skipped this video. But, I mean, that does... Oh, well, it's... The player just sits there surfing. We'll fix that in our next video. So stay tuned for kind of the conclusion of making the fireball do things, and then after that we want to put a bar above the player to indicate how close we are to charging up to the next level, so that there's a little bit of feedback to the player to know how strong of a fireball they've prepared. Alright, see you next time.